you've enjoyed the first few chapters. I'd like to read chapter 4 to you today. Dad didn't say a word at breakfast. He just smiled, a few secret smiles, at James across the kitchen table. Just winked a few winks. James had never eaten breakfast so fast in all his life. He never said a word. He was too busy eating. And while he was eating, he was working out what he would need to finish building his snowman. He gobbled down his cereal, gulped down his milk, wolfed down his toast, giving the crust sneakily to Bertie under the table, because when Grandma came to stay, she always made him eat his crusts, which he didn't like at all. Besides, giving them to Bertie helped him finish up his breakfast even faster. "Finished," he said, and he was off. "Don't forget to wrap up warm," Grandma said. "Your nice green scarf, the one I knitted for you, and your woolly gloves, and make sure you put on your thick socks inside those wellies. And don't forget my old hat. It's in the shed," Dad called out after him. "Got to keep warm out there." James knew well enough who he was talking about, who the hat was for, but no one else did. He loved having secrets with his dad. He was glad Dad had reminded him about the old hat. He'd forgotten all about it. He did put on the green scarf, but he didn't bother with anything else. On his way out, James went to the larder and found everything he thought he would need for his snowman: a tangerine, some apples, and a handful of those horrible Brussels sprouts that only Grandma liked. Then he picked up a couple of pieces of coal from the coal shed. These were all just perfect for what James had in mind. So his pockets stuffed with fruit and vegetables and coal, James stomped out across the garden, fetched Dad's old hat from the shed, and then went out into the field. Bertie ran on ahead of him and was already prowling around the giant snowman, growling. "It's all right, Bertie," James told him. "He won't hurt you. I know he looks a bit strange at the moment, but you just watch. I'm going to make him the happiest, friendliest snowman ever. Watch." So Bertie sat and watched as James climbed up to the very top of the ladder. He had to, so that he could reach. The ladder wobbled a bit, but James didn't mind. He took off his dad's hat and put it on the snowman's head. It fitted perfectly. He had two nice little apples for the ears. They looked just the right shape, ear-shaped. James pushed them in quite deep so that they stayed there. Then he pulled the hat down low like his dad did, so you couldn't see them anymore. That way they would be warm. With those ears, the snow one would be able to understand everything we're saying. "But Bertie, you'll see," said James. By now he could hardly feel his fingers or his feet, but he didn't mind. There was still so much to do. "Nose," he told Bertie, taking the tangerine out of his coat pocket and showing him it. "It's got to be an orange nose, because orange is my favourite colour." He stuck it in as hard as he could, and now the snowman had his own bright orange nose, which suited him perfectly. "There, that won't fall off, will it? And look, it's a lovely nose. He'll be able to smell with it, won't he? You can't live without a nose, can you, Bertie?" Bertie swished his tail in the snow and yawned and licked his lips, which he often did when he agreed. "Now he's got to have eyes so he can see us," James said, taking the two pieces of coal out of his pocket. "Look, Bertie, he's going to have black eyes, smiling black eyes. He'll be happy with those, won't he?" But the snowman's face didn't look happy. "Maybe he's cold," said James. "You can't be happy if you're cold, can you, Bertie? He hasn't got many clothes, has he?" And that gave him another brilliant idea. He took off his green scarf, the one that Grandma knitted for him, reached out and tied it around the snowman's neck. He looked a little warmer, perhaps, but he still didn't seem much happier. James got down off the ladder, stood back and looked up at his snowman. Bertie looked up at him too. Dad's old hat was keeping his head warm, and the scarf suited him fine. It looked grand on him, blowing in the wind, but James could now see that a scarf on its own wouldn't keep him really warm. "He needs a coat, Bertie," James said, "but he's far too big for any coat we've got at home, even Dad's. I mean, we don't know any giants, do we? But maybe if I gave him a pretend coat so that it looked really real and he felt it was really real, then maybe that would keep him properly warm and make him happy. What do you think, Bertie?" Bertie put his head on one side, as if to say, and he talked really well with his eyes. I think a coat is just what that snowman needs, but it must have buttons, so he can do it up. Lots of buttons. You'll see. You've still got Grandma's horrible Brussels sprouts in your pocket, haven't you? They'll do fine as buttons. A lot better than eating them, that's for sure. You're a genius, dog Bertie, James said, crouching down to give him a cuddle. Then up on the ladder he went again. He took all the Brussels sprouts out of his pocket and, starting at the top near the snowman's neck, came slowly down the ladder, giving his snowman Brussels sprout buttons, button after button, till he had none left. And in the end, the snowman's coat had 5 buttons from top to bottom, all of them as green as Brussels sprouts.